meditation was not really something that I chose per se. It was not something that I had been thinking, oh, I'm just going to do this for a long time. And it just sort of happened to me out of necessity. Now, when I was younger, there may have been signs that this would be something that was coming, although I didn't know it at the time. For example, I've always been fascinated with this idea of God, what God is, and different religious systems. Being raised in a Jewish family, I was really drawn in with the stories from the Torah, the Old Testament. In particular, I loved the stories about the people who spoke with God directly, or God spoke to them at least. For example, Abraham and Moses. Now, back when I was younger, I think on Facebook there was like this thing you could select your heroes, and in my heroes I had these two guys. I was just totally fascinated by these people who had recorded experiences of a direct connection and experience with God. Now, whether those stories are actually true and have any kind of historical accuracy or not, it's not important to me actually, because it was the message contained within that was so powerful. So, didn't really go anywhere with it. In fact, I really struggled with this idea of God because I was pretty unhappy when I was younger. I remember being in high school and just standing outside the on the steps of the Temple Israel where I was attending. Maybe I was 16 years old, and I just remember feeling so unhappy about my own life and about the world in general, and thinking, if God is real, how can the world be such a painful place like this? Of course, later these answers would come to me as well, but I was very lost and confused at that time. When I was in college, I began my, I guess, first kind of introduction to meditation in a way. At UC Santa Cruz, I began taking Aikido classes. It's a Japanese martial art that focuses on kind of like it's like a non-violent system as far as like self-defense goes. A lot of people laugh at it, say, oh, that could never really be used in a real application. And that's not true, because while it may not be like obviously used as a self-defense system, if someone's trying to hurt you, it did teach me a lot about myself and how to feel and move in my body, and the importance of body awareness and breathing. And so, putting all these things together, I found that I was able to move people much larger than me in that class. And I loved my teacher, Yoshi Sensei. He was so calm and happy and peaceful. And I remember the stories that he told about how he used to be very angry when he was younger, and he used to get in fights with people, and that he had even hurt some people in fights, and he had scared himself because of the anger and destructive power that was within him, and it was through that process that led him to learn Aikido. And that really stood out to me because I was very angry when I was younger too, had such a hard time controlling my emotions. Actually, what I would do is constantly take on more than I was able to, but I'd let it all in and let it on and internalize everything and not express myself until finally I couldn't take it more and I would just like explode in anger. So by learning Aikido, I started to see how this process could help me to regulate my emotions a little bit more by focusing on my breathing and my body, and I loved it. I hit a little roadblock along the way after I finished my second year of university when I had an accident. I fell off an ATV riding at Pismo Beach. I broke my collarbone, and I look back at that event experience, and I just consider myself to be so grateful that I had studied and practiced Aikido, because I really felt that this body awareness that I developed learning how to fall, being thrown, may have saved my life in that case. But I naturally kind of did the best I could to control myself as I flew through the air, being completely out of control. My body did what it needed to do based on my practice, and I was able to land relatively safely, the result being a broken clavicle and not a broken neck and paralysis or death. But at that time, I was so unhappy and in an incredible amount of pain. It was just awful. For 2 weeks, I couldn't even do anything but lay in bed. When I was able to do a little bit more, it was laying in bed and reading. And so one of the books that I read at that time was Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. And that book really spoke to me because it was a story about, well, I'm not even going to go into the story, because if you haven't read it and you're watching this, read the book. You might be interested. Dan Millman is like one of the classic authors of this kind of spiritual growth and spiritual growth genre. Very good book, and it really opened my eyes to what I was doing with my life and gave me a little bit of perspective, thinking, why am I making choices like this? Why am I sitting here? Why am I laying here in bed, the broken bone, can't even move? What led me to this? What is going on? And it got me thinking that maybe I was not on the right track in life. Maybe there's something else that I'm supposed to be doing, and I had been avoiding that. Well, I didn't know it at the time, but I was avoiding the pain, actually. So much pain that was inside me. But I was doing the best that I could. After this, I went to Japan, actually. I lived there for a year, and it was a very dark period in my life. So much pain from the injury. I fell into very kind of deep sort of alcoholic depression. I drank so much. I went to school there, did really well in my classes, but I would be up getting drunk even as I did the homework. There was one night I didn't even sleep. I was up, well, I did sleep, slept in the basement of a McDonald's after throwing up on myself, and showed up to the class and just like must have smelled so bad. I'm sure you could see the stuff on my clothes. I don't even know if I attempted to clean it up. And I showed up late, and I just said, I'm sorry for being late, and sat down. Nobody said anything to me, but they all knew. They all definitely knew. I remember looking at the notes that I took that day in my class, and I couldn't even read it. I was a mess. But I couldn't quite pull myself out. After I returned from Japan a year later, finished up my last year in university, was fortunately had recovered enough of my health where I was able to start practicing Aikido again, and I was very happy to do that. But there was this other issue that I had. After I came back from Japan, I was having I had really bad skin problems. Very itchy, had like little, I don't know what you call it, little, almost like pus-filled bubbles that had grown on my skin, and it never really went away. Didn't understand what was going on with that, and this was one of the things that really led me to a greater awakening. I thought, why am I having these health problems? I went to the doctor. Doctor said, oh, just put some cream on it and steroid cream, it'll go away on its own. It never did. Um, After I graduated from college, didn't know what to do, and started selling knives. It was during that period that I was introduced to Reiki by a friend of mine. Went to Ventura and did this one-on-one, a one-day course of this Reiki initiation. And I remember meditating with the teacher and how good it felt in that moment. I'd never experienced anything like that before. It was from that day that I really felt like my life had changed. And I thought there's just no going back anymore. There's no going back to the ways I was before. And, well, I guess I wasn't ready because I was going back. Still needed more drinking and alcoholism and bad habits and poor choices, but I had been given a taste of what was possible. Now, it wasn't until my mom died that's when everything fell apart. I couldn't hold it together anymore, and I became really depressed. And I remember thinking about this Way of the Peaceful Warrior book that, I had to do something, I had to pick myself up and push forward, no matter how painful it was, that I had to do something if I wanted to keep living. This was a couple of years after I had graduated from university, 3 years, I don't quite remember right now. And I went back to martial arts again, started learning Tai Chi and Kung Fu, and this was when I really began to practice meditation more. My Tai Chi teacher, Richard Sim in Long Beach, great guy. I don't know if he's still teaching there or not, but just absolutely amazing program that he did down there. In our Tai Chi classes, he would be in the class with a few minutes of meditation. I don't know what it was, like 5 minutes maybe. Just, he said, sit down, close your eyes, and focus on your breathing. And that was it. And I loved those Tai Chi classes. It was sure hard to get out of bed and get there some days because I was just feeling so shitty in that period. But I pushed myself and I did it. And I learned a lot. I was able to build myself back up again from a place of that was one of the lowest points in my whole life after my mom died. And I really appreciate how that experience led me to rediscover myself, get me back on this path that was meant for me, that I had been so resistant to. And that led me to my cousin Greg, who I would end up working and living with him as his personal assistant, massage therapist, and caretaker, and just, do everything kind of person. And I felt like I kind of graduated, okay? That it was time to move up to the next level. It was a big step beyond anything I'd ever done before. And I needed these tools with the martial arts and meditation to get me through that experience, because boy, it was hard. And I found myself struggling again, not really keeping up with my practice. I felt like I needed guidance and began taking yoga classes, which were in the area. And this was like my first really introduction to dive deeper into yoga. I'd practiced it before when I was in Long Beach, but wasn't really that into it, I guess. So began taking local classes where I was living in Carson City, and this helped me to stay grounded and connected when I was going through this really hard time. My cousin had been, talking about killing himself and watching his whole life fall apart, no matter what he seemed to do, no matter how much I wanted to help him, that it just wasn't getting better. So I needed this yoga and learned another form of meditation at that time using prayer beads, mala. This is something that if you're Catholic, you probably quite familiar with. It's a rosary. And using these beads, you just repeat some prayer or mantra one time for each bead. The particular necklace that I use, according to this yogic tradition, has 108 beads. And so you repeat it at least 108 times. And I really enjoyed that, and this became part of my practice. I also met with another teacher who was teaching meditation in Truckee, Christian Steele, and he didn't have like a specific thing so much as what he taught was to close your eyes and focus on your connection with the higher power. And he's also very intuitive and would do these energy readings. And he said to me, he said, Joshua, I'm really impressed when I do these readings with you, because it's not very often that I meet somebody like this where I can really feel so much going on. He said, but there's this big block over you that's got you disconnected from your power. And that was the first time I really met somebody that suggested to me that this might be something that was actually that it was meant for me, that I was supposed to be following this path of meditation. And then as Greg got really sick right towards the end of his life, and it just became it became so hard. I felt like I was being crushed by this weight, trying to carry so much for him. I'd taken on all of his karma and all of his burden and emotional patterns and trauma from his family, and it was becoming my own. And so I came to this one Kundalini yoga class in Reno, and it was so different than any other type of yoga I'd done before. And the part that really stood out to me was the long 11-minute meditation at the end of the class, and I loved it. I think I took maybe 2 or 3 classes. They announced that they were having a teacher training coming up in Reno, and I just knew right away, yes, this is what I'm going to do. This is the next step. Signed up for the training, and went over a period of 6 months, meeting once a month. I learned all about the physical anatomy and the, yogic energetic anatomy, with the subtle bodies and the auric bodies, and so much beyond what's just happening physically inside, and so many different poses and this yogic philosophy and different types of meditation and chanting, and it was just the most magical experience for me. I really transformed through this process, and I'm so appreciative, so grateful that this opportunity was available for me at that time, and I took the jump and went into it because it was exactly what I needed to help me along the way. And while I was practicing this stuff, I still couldn't really shake some of these addictions to drinking alcohol or smoking, for example. After Greg died, and I received the share of the inheritance that he had left for me, I kind of left all this stuff behind, stopped meditating, stopped practicing yoga. I had held on to this false belief that this practice was a tool to get me to the place where I could make enough money so that I could finally be good enough. And then once I did that, I thought I had arrived at the place where I needed to be, and I could let go of these tools, like a ladder after you climb up to the roof, but you're never going back down, so you can kick the ladder down. You're not going back that way, so you don't need it anymore. Or, I was mistaken, but I didn't know it at the time. And I went on to make more choices that led me to a lot more pain, to led me to losing all this money that I had earned, and finding myself back in the situation. What am I doing here? What is going on with my life? I thought I had this figured out, and now it just feels like everything's falling apart again. That was when I reconnected with the teachings from Kyle Cease, who I had heard of many years before that. And his way was so simple. I really was drawn into this. He talks about meditation a lot, and he says to just close your eyes, breathe, and listen. Listen to the thoughts that come up, whatever they are, accept them. Don't fight against them because it doesn't work. A lot of people have this idea, they think, oh, I'm going to start meditating because then the thoughts will go away, or then I'll finally be able to control my thoughts, or then I'll finally be then it'll finally be peaceful. And it just doesn't work that way. When you start meditating, it actually feels like you're getting worse because that's when you realize how much is going on in your mind. If you're really busy, always trying to do stuff, or work or exercise or watch movies and entertain, whatever. Those things all have their place and they serve their purpose as needed. But when you stop doing them and you just close your eyes and listen, you might realize just how much is going on in your mind. And if you've got a loud kind of negative self-talk like I did, it can be a very scary and kind of horrible place to feel to start with. And so I wanted to meditate as a way to get rid of those things. And that doesn't work either. Because if you're doing something from the motivation of, how do I get rid of this thing that I don't like? It may seem to work, but it's going to come back around, because then you're just creating a new kind of replacement or kind of scaffold on top of that, and that will fall apart too eventually. And so yogic tradition teaches us that the use of mantra and positive thinking is just another tool, the same with pranayama or breath control, is just another tool to get us along the way. And these are actually crutches, if you will, because positive thinking is just another illusion, because there's no such thing as good or bad, but the negative thoughts, once they have served their purpose, are no longer useful for us, and continuing to focus and fixate or fight against the negative thoughts when we know that there's another way only stops us from continuing along in that path. So the positive thoughts are then used to kind of replace the negative thoughts, and eventually you can then move beyond the idea of positive or negative, and you don't need a system to try and control your thoughts, because everything just comes out as it is and it's fully accepted. So the meditation practice that I have been doing that I've been doing every day at this point for over a month now, is just to close my eyes and listen. And whatever the thoughts are that comes up, don't try and resist them. Don't try and hide from them, or don't try and change the thoughts, or what. Just accept them, to love everything that comes up, and do it without an egoic desire for an outcome. It's not, I accept this so that I can get rid of it, because then that's still trying to force it, and you can't trick your mind. It knows what's going on, so that won't work. And so even the most kind of awful thoughts and feelings that you have, you think, gosh, I just hate this about myself, that I keep thinking this, that I keep doing this, that I have this belief. It won't go away until it's ready. It won't go away until you realize that this thought or belief that you have is just so ridiculous, because you understand that its time to serve you has ended. And this is what meditation is about for me. How to be present and accept myself fully where I am right now. And I'd like to offer it to you if you haven't been doing this, but you've been watching some of these videos, to actually start meditating yourself. Like I said, there's no right way or wrong way to do it. Just close your eyes, sit in a comfortable position. I'm sitting on the floor right now, but you can sit in a chair, you can sit on a couch. Just try and keep yourself, you don't want to be like lounging back and lead yourself to fall asleep. If you do fall asleep, that's okay, because that probably just means you're tired and need more sleep. But put yourself in a position where you can remain focused and just see what happens. It might be hard when you first start, but the more you do it, the easier it gets, and the better like your life will be. I'm not telling you that because that's like what somebody else has said to me. I know from my own experience because I have meditated for hundreds of hours. I really don't know how much, but I can see the change that this has had in my life. It's bringing me greater happiness and peace and satisfaction and acceptance where I am, no matter whether it's a bad day and I just feel like shit and I want to lay on the couch for hours. And I can do that. I used to feel guilty. And now I say, okay, it's time. This is a sign. I really need to just stop trying to do anything and just lay down and rest. And then when there's something I want to do, I go for it. I don't sit around in fear thinking, is this the right thing to do? Like, what if I screw up? I just try and follow everything that I want to step by step. And I truly believe that I have this process of meditation to thank me for all of that. So go ahead and try it yourself and see what it feels like. If these videos have got you to start doing meditation for the first time, please put something in the comments. Or if you are someone who's been meditating for a while and you learned something new through all this process, let me know in those comments too. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to these videos. And if you liked this one, let me know with the like button. And I love you so much. And I think you're amazing. No matter what it is that you're going through, I'm here with you. And I believe in you, and I'm so, so grateful that you're here on this journey together with me. See you next time.